Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. We got an interesting part today, as we're taking a step into what can consider be the mid-season or season 2 part of this What If. But before we get into that, gotta shout out the patron as always. So, Megar, thank you very much for the support. And also, analytics are very important, so please make sure to drop a like and to drop a comment on the video, so that way it'll help get to the algorithm and to a larger audience. And also, if you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so that way you'll never miss an upload. But with all that being said, let's get into What If Brock Took the Gym Challenge Part 14. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's episode with Brock and Joe as they are making their way through a place called the Glimwood Tangle. It is a heavily forested area that seems to have no end in sight. The boys are looking very disheveled as it seems like they've been trapped in this place for what is an eternity. It's been over 3 days with no other signs of human civilization anywhere, and the boys are beginning to think that they are walking in circles. It's even gotten to the point to where Joe mentions that he thinks he's seen that giant glowing mushroom before. However, Brock, out of frustration, just simply retorts that they're all giant glowing mushrooms. They're everywhere. They all look the same. There is no landmarkers in this endless forest, followed by a very intense growl of frustration and then a deep sigh, as that was something that Brock needed to get off his chest. "I'm sorry," he says to Joe. "I'm not frustrated at you. I'm just frustrated at this situation. I can't believe we're lost. We were making such great time to the next gym." "Yeah, I can understand, Brock. However, the only thing we can do is keep pushing forward. After all, it's not like we can get any reception through all of these thick trees with our Rotom phones." As Joe looks at his, with the ghost type apologizing with its seemingly inability to provide any type of location or direction for them to follow. Joe doesn't know what it is, but something about this place could be considered magical, but whether it's a good or bad magic remains to be seen. However, the boys have no choice but to push forward, as because of the overgrown vegetation, they can't really tell whether it's day or night, so they can only keep moving until they get tired enough to where they feel like they're going to have to rest. Luckily, the boys aren't running low on supplies, as that would be the last thing that they would want to have to deal with now. They could go at least another week before they would actually have to start worrying. And that's all thanks to Joe, because he's the one who makes sure that they're stocked up before they leave each city. However, as our heroes continue to walk, things start to happen. They can see what feels like shadows out of the corner of their eyes, or familiar objects that they are known for everyday life. But when they turn, there's nothing there. It's kind of like an illusion, or something's playing games with their mind. And things come to a head when both Brock and Joe notice what looks like to be some sort of human encampment ahead of them. The boys rush as they would like to have any type of human interaction besides the two of them that they've had over the last couple of days. But when they get there, it's nothing, absolutely emptiness, aside from a couple of glowing mushrooms and glowing moss that adorn the sides of the trees. It's at this point that Brock and Joe have both come to the consensus that they're going to have to make camp for the day or the night, as they both recognize that it seems like their mind is playing tricks on them, so they should probably get something to eat and get a good night's rest. They'll start back up fresh and early or late, whenever they're feeling up to it. So the duo clears some space on the ground below, and they begin to make a fire, setting up camp for the day, as Joe gets out all of the cookware to begin preparing their meal for the night. As Brock sets out the sleeping bags, Joe prepares the fire and begins to put a meal on so that way they can get eating as soon as possible. And it doesn't take long for everything to be set up and the two to be sitting around a campfire with the rest of their Pokemon as they're enjoying their company while eating a home-cooked meal. Well, as home-cooked as you can get out here in the middle of a forest that has no end. However, this moment of relief isn't going to last very long, as tension begins to build when a growling can be heard coming from off within the forest, and what sounds like footsteps with twigs breaking and stumbling over rocks. It's here that Joe and Brock both come to the same consensus. They're being watched by something, and whatever it is could be extremely dangerous, as not only have they not seen any humans, but they also haven't seen any Pokemon since they entered the Tangle. So this causes the boys to be on edge, as the groaning and growls can be heard getting closer and louder, and the footsteps getting heavier and more rushed, followed by a deep breathing like something is preparing to attack. The boys get on edge, as most of their Pokemon Leon take a defensive stance, even with Gyarados feeling tense in the situation. However, this is all going to come to a boiling point as something busts through a set of bushes that is directly in front of them, only to reveal that it's Leon. The boy is looking far more disheveled than what Brock and Joe is, as he's been trapped in here for over a week now. He's almost in a zombie-like state, as the only thing he can do to communicate is to grunt and groan, signaling that he needs what looks to be water and food. So in order to help the boy out, Joe happily provides it for him, as Leon begins to eat like a savage and wild animal, before gulping down any water that he can in a fashion that shouldn't be humanly possible. Brock and Joe just look on in confusion and a little bit of disgust as Leon demonstrates that he is able to possibly eat more than his body should be able to handle or carry. But eventually, after he gets some food in his system, he's able to articulate some words, saying that he's glad he ran into these two. He's been trapped in here for over a week now, and it's gotten to the point to where he had ran out of food. He had even started to hallucinate, thinking that he had saw human encampment spread throughout the forest. Leon tells him that he was beginning to lose hope, and he kind of de-evolved for the time being into a primal state, just aimlessly walking throughout the Tangle, trying to find any means of human contact or activity. Luckily, he was able to find them, as that means that he can get out of here. However, Joe and Brock are going to be the bearer of bad news very quick, as they both inform the boy in tandem that they are just as lost as he is. They've been in here now for about 3 to 4 days, and they have no idea which way they're headed. Their rotom phones don't even get any signal. So like it or not, the three boys are stuck with each other until they can figure this out. This causes Leon to sigh, as he was really hoping that his journey into the darkness come to an end. However, Brock tells him not to worry. They have plenty of food, and as long as they ration what they have, they should be able to last for at least another week before they'll have to start to worry, as he turns to look at the pot that was currently boiling over the fire. As the pot with all their food in it seems to have gone missing, causing Brock to let out a yelp, drawing the attention of both Leon and Joe. "Our food, it's gone," he says. "Who took it? Leon, was that you? Did you eat it all already?" But the boy says he hasn't. He hasn't moved from the spot that he sat down since he started eating. Joe confirms this, as they were both watching Brock, but they weren't watching the food. The two boys then turn to their Pokemon, questioning if any of them took it. However, they all just look back in puzzlement, not really sure on who took the food. This is when it sets in, a very real situation that they are not alone. There is something else here in the forest, and all of those illusions and mind tricks that they thought they were going through is actually someone or something messing with them. As the panic begins to set in, the trio decide that they need to figure out exactly what's behind this. So they recall all of their Pokemon except for the ones that could be the most effective in this situation. For Leon, it's a simple choice. Charmeleon will be going with him, while Brock chooses Carkol and Joe chooses to use Sableye. The three then slowly begin to fan out in different directions, with the camp being point zero, so that way they can stay within eyeshot of each other and cover as much ground as possible. After all, they want to make sure that they don't get caught off guard by whatever's out here. But quickly, things begin to happen as those shadows and illusions that are coming in the corners of their eyes slowly begin to creep back, causing each of the boys to experience something different. All the while, a little cackling can be heard off in the background, as it appears that there is a certain Pokemon that is playing tricks on the trio, as it now has their pot of food sitting there eating it, and each time one of the humans or their Pokemon get close, it simply uses its knowledge of the forest to whip up illusions using the glowing moss and mushrooms in the surrounding area to feed into their fear. But unfortunately for this mischievous Pokemon, this isn't going to be able to last forever, as with a misstep, it happens to drop the pot that it was carrying, causing a clanging sound that Charmeleon is able to pick up on, as it's just over a log that is right next to it. Without hesitation, the fire type lets out a flamethrower that quickly envelops the area and roasts the Pokemon on the other side of the log, causing it to cry out in pain. This gets a reaction as both Joe and Brock heard this, and they come running to the aid of Leon and Charmeleon. However, when they get there, this mysterious Pokemon is standing on a log, scolding Charmeleon for attacking it. However, the fire type doesn't want to hear anything that this thing has to say, as it simply lets out another flamethrower, knowing full well that it's what stole the food that they had prepared. The little imp dodges the best it can before firing back with some sort of dark type attack. This is where Leon pulls out his rotom phone in an attempt to get a brief signal. Luckily, the boy is able to, and it's able to identify identify this Pokemon as Morgrim. Now knowing what they're dealing with, Leon decides to engage in battle with the Dark Fairy type, as Charmeleon lets out a flamethrower, followed by a Metal Claw that cracks the Fairy type for super effective damage and temporarily stuns it, allowing Leon to throw a Pokeball, catching it in the process. This brings a sigh of relief over everyone, as it seems like this Morgrim was the only one of its kind around, as if there were others, then they would have been attacking the trio by now. With this situation now behind them, the three head back to camp, to where Leon lets Morgrim out of the ball, asking it if it's alright. He didn't mean to cause it any harm, he just wanted it to stop attacking them, and not to steal their food. All it had to do was ask, and they would have gladly given it some. At first, the Fairy type doesn't believe them, simply turning its cheek, trying to ignore Leon. However, Joe reaffirms this statement as it presents it with a bowl that the Fairy type easily swallows down in one gulp, surprising Leon and the rest of the humans. Wow, you must have been as hungry as I was, Leon says. So, hey, Morgrim, can I ask you a question? Do you know the way out of here? The emo imp looks at Leon and thinks for a second. It then signifies that it does, pointing into a direction that the boys hadn't traveled before, as it seemed like it was the thickest part of the Tangle. However, Morgrim reassures them that if they want to get out, that's really the only way. It's here that Brock and Joe reiterate to Leon that they've all had a pretty trying day, so why don't they take the night to rest and eat up, and then they'll set off after they've gotten a good night's sleep, to which Leon is okay with, as the boy hasn't had a proper night's sleep in some time. It's here that we fade to the point to when everybody is waking up and Morgrim is slowly leading the boys out of the forest. At first, a bit of distrust is what is on the forefront of everybody's mind. However, Morgrim quickly shows that it is something that can be trusted, as after the forest starts to open up a little bit, they begin to see what looks like buildings set into the forest. And it's here that they begin to realize the reason why they couldn't find their way through the forest is because they were trying to find a city on the other side, when the city that they were trying to find, Balanlea, the site of their next gym battle, is actually set within the forest. Morgrim points that that's where the humans live. However, it refuses to go any farther, as it has had a few bad experiences in this village when it tried to steal food because it was unable to find anything in the forest. However, Leon tells the Pokemon that it shouldn't worry. He caught it, which means technically Leon is its trainer. So Morgrim shouldn't be worried about heading into the city, especially since how if Morgrim's part of Leon's team, then he's not going to let anyone have a problem with it. Otherwise, they're going to have a problem with him and Charmeleon. To which the fire type blows out a brief snuff of flames, signifying that it agrees with Leon. This reassurance from someone other than a Pokemon catches Morgrim a bit off guard, as it's had nothing but bad experiences with humans in the past. But this boy seems to be different, and the imp realizes it. So even though it's hesitant, it chooses to follow Leon in, as it's quite curious to how humans live, as it's never been able to fully understand their culture. Now, the first stop for our boys is going to be the Pokemon Center, of course, after all the time that they spent lost in the Tangle. Luckily, this visit is going to come with a little issue, as even though their Pokemon and them were lost, it seems that everything and everyone is in good shapes. However, Nurse Joy is suggesting they take it easy, as it is 10 p.m. at night, and the gym won't be open until first thing in the morning. This is what Brock and Joe were talking about earlier. They don't know what time it is, and because the sun cannot penetrate the canopy of the Tangle, they had no idea that it was this late at night. So they use the time to get some much needed rest and actually sleep in a bed for once. While those two are comfortable with being roommates, Leon on the other hand hasn't really had that experience, as he's been traveling alone throughout his entire journey, aside from some off missions with his friend Sonia. So he's gonna opt to take a room that's by himself, especially since how he's now got Morgrim and he'd like to get a chance to know the dark type. The rest of the night goes off without a hitch before they're all up bright and early the next morning. This is because both Leon and Brock know there's gonna be one truth here. It's whoever gets to the first is going to get the first gym battle, and this has caused the two to get a little bit antsy as they are out the door at sunrise. But unfortunately, as they both arrived at the gym at the same time, they're going to find out quickly that it's not open, as Joe comes running up behind them, a bit out of breath trying to keep up with the boys. He was trying to tell them that he found out that the gym doesn't open until 10 a.m. So like it or not, they're going to have to wait. However, both of the boys are stubborn, and since how they're already here, they refuse to move. They have another 4 hours considering it is sunrise, even though they can't really tell. So they're gonna sit here right in front of the gym door waiting for the leader, both determined to be the first ones to battle them. While this is a bit taxing on Joe's nerves, he decides that he's going to sit and wait with Brock as he has nothing else to do. And the next couple of hours seem to take forever, as the only thing that Brock and Leon do is stare at each other, not really saying anything, almost as if they're having a staring contest to make sure that they don't lose track of the other person, just in case they were to get a head start and get into the gym before the other person. It gets to the point that Joe is so tired of waiting that he begins to nod off. But this is quickly interrupted when an old lady walks up to the gym demanding to know what these three boys are doing standing in front of her door. She then begins to ramble on about the homeless population and how Balanlea has gotten quite out of control with it as of late. She has to kick these people out every day when she comes to open up her precious gym. The three boys can do nothing but watch as this old lady rants on and on and on about things that they have no idea of anything about. So, do you think it's a good idea to interrupt her, Joe says. I don't know, Brock responds. It seems like if we do, things could get dangerous. To which Leon confirms it might just be best to let her peter out, he says. To which the boys, who are afraid to engage with the old battle axe, just let things run their course before the old lady begins to run out of breath, turning to them and asking why they haven't left yet. This is where Brock and Leon are finally able to get their first words in, as they both declare that they're here to challenge the gym leader. This confuses the old woman at first, as she questions if they're here for a tag battle, because that's not the type of gym that this is. However, they both decline this, saying that they're both challengers, to which the old woman, who has now become known as Opal, tells them that she can only take on one challenger per day. It's all her busy schedule will allow, so they're going to have to decide on who battles first. This prompts the two to begin an argument, to which there seems to be no end in sight, as Leon and Brock both give reasons on why they should be the one to battle first. It eventually gets to the point that the old woman is getting frustrated because time is being wasted, so she tells the boys to quiet down. She has a way that they can settle this once and for all. She's going to ask these boys a series of questions, 3 to be exact, and the first one to get the most right will be the one that she battles. Well, what happens if there's a tie then, Brock says, to which the old woman informs them that if there is such a thing, then nobody will be battling today, as there was no clear winner. While this statement is a bit off-putting for the two, both Leon and Brock accept the challenge, as they want a chance to earn their 5th badge of the region. So Opal happily asks the questions that she has come to mind. The first one is a relatively easy one that anyone should get. Which of the following is not a dragon type? Dragonite, Kingdra, or Gyarados? Brock knows that this question was made for him, as he immediately shoots his hand up declaring Gyarados, while in tandem, Leon's hand goes up declaring Kingdra, to which Opal gives the first question to Brock. While Gyarados looks like it's a dragon type, it actually carries the distinct typing of flying and water, so Brock gets the first point. This peeves Leon a little bit, but he's determined to get the next question. Out of all the evolutions of Eevee, how many are there? 3, 5, or 8? Once again, Brock feels like he has this one, as his arm shoots up into the air, declaring that there are 5 different evolutions to Eevee. However, Leon lets out a squeal of excitement as he declares there are 8, to which Opal declares Leon the winner. Eevee has 8 evolutions. Opal declares Leon the winner, as there are far more than just 5 evolutions, considering that Eevee can evolve in many ways across the Pokemon world. This puts things at a tie, so whoever gets this next question will be the one to battle Opal for the day. The two now grit their teeth as Opal prepares to ask the final question. Name 2 Pokemon that share a regional form with a Pokemon here in Galar. Leon's hand immediately shoots up as he declares Ponyta and oh come on, I know there was one more. What was it? However, Brock remembers this as it was his final question on the exam that he had back at the academy before he left for Galar, to which the boy wastes no time. Farfetch'd and Ponyta. Opal tells the boy that he is correct. Those two do have regional forms that exist here in Galar and in the CANT region. So, because Brock got the answer first, he will be the one that gets a chance to challenge the gym. This causes Leon to get a bit upset, as he really wanted the chance to battle today. He's been itching for one ever since he got lost in the Tangle. But since Opal won't accept his challenge, Leon guesses that he'll just sit in the stands with Joe as they watch Brock have all of the fun. Now that things have been determined and Opal can finally get back on the schedule, she tells Brock Brock to follow her. She doesn't care what the other boys do, but him, he has her interest, as he appears to be somewhat knowledgeable on Pokemon. So they're gonna head inside to where they both are gonna take their positions. The old lady tells Brock that this will be a 2-on-2. They will be allowed to Dynamax during the battle, and the battle will be over when one side is out of Pokemon to use, and only Brock will be allowed substitutions. And also, to add a little bit of pressure to the situation, Opal informs Brock that she won't be taking it easy, as she is a former champion of the Galar region. These words catch not only Brock's ears, but Leon's ears as well, causing both of the boys to let out a brief gulp. Brock knows what it was like to face Peony in their training, and he couldn't even come close to beating him, even though he got stronger. Which means that if this old bat is a former champion, he's going to have things cut out for him. But Brock isn't going to let this detour him. After all the things that he's been through and the questionnaire that he had to go through to get this battle, he is going to take this challenge no matter what, as the two trainers now stand across from each other. With the wave of this battle to start, Brock readies the ball of his first Pokemon as he declares, "Carkol, your time to battle." The walking pile of coals emerges from its ball, ready to cause some havoc, if you will. While Opal, in her old, shrewd manner, wastes no time sending in something that's going to strike fear into not only Brock, but everybody else in attendance as Grimmsnarl hits the field. This is my ace, boys, so do your best to not make it bored with your attempts to try and win this battle. Brock can see that Opal isn't wasting any time. She must really be behind schedule due to Leon and him arguing. So our hero, in the spirit of speeding things up, decides to increase the speed of his starter, calling for a flame charge that Carkol is able to execute by throwing the weight of its entire body into Grimmsnarl as it bursts into flames. This increases the speed of the rock type, but Grimmsnarl isn't going to let this go off unpunished, as Opal gives a simple command for a power-up punch that cracks the rock type across the head, sending it sliding back to its side of the field, as Grimmsnarl glows in some sort of hue, signaling that it got a stat increase. I told you, boy, you're gonna have to do better than that. Now, Grimmsnarl, use Spirit Break. Almost reciprocating what Carkol did to it, Grimmsnarl smashes into the rock type with as much force as possible, nearly breaking its entire will in the process, causing Carkol to glow in a strange hue of its own. This is where Brock finds out that Spirit Break is going to prevent him from causing some major damage, as with the command of a second flame charge, its speed has increased, but the amount of damage that it was able to execute is next to nothing, as it again is cracked with the power-up punch, causing Grimmsnarl to cause more damage to Carkol while it glows in some sort of hue. That's when Brock begins to put two and two together, as a look of realization is plastered across his face, while Opal begins to explain her plan. Her power-up punch will increase Grimmsnarl's attack, while Spirit Break will decrease Brock's. So the only thing he's got for him right now is speed and defense. So the boy might want to change up his strategy, otherwise he's gonna lose rather quickly. Though he hates to admit it, Brock can acknowledge that she's right, as that last attack barely did anything. But he still has one hope, as he orders Carkol to try and use an ancient power. Suddenly, boulders begin to levitate overhead as they fly in the direction of Grimmsnarl. However, this is a moot point, as Opal is able to easily counter this by ordering a power-up punch that is able to crack its way through all except for one of the boulders that makes a connection with the dark type, causing some damage. However, this didn't have the effect that Brock was hoping for, as he didn't get any type of stat buff from the ancient power, and normally the high rolling move works in his favor. This means that things are beginning to get dangerous for his rock type. Knowing that he has no choice, Brock makes a decision to recall Carkol for the time being, as if he does this, then that means that Carkol is going to get a chance to rest up and have its stats put back to normal. Being a former champion, Opal comments that she's seen this many times before, so Brock shouldn't be too cocky, as she's well informed of what he is trying to do. But Brock knows full well that this lady is on a different level than the gym leaders he's faced prior to her, and his next choice needs to be something that is going to be able to hit hard. However, he thinks he may have that, as what he needs right now is a little bit of unpredictability, something that not even he's fully sure of what its power is capable of. Readying his Pokeball in his hand, Brock declares, "Thwacky, your time to battle." The mid-stage grass type emerges from its ball, ready to take on this challenge. However, as it stares down Grimmsnarl, something overcomes it. It's not fear, rather excitement. Excitement at the chance that it's going to battle a high-level opponent. With the signal to start this next battle given, Brock engages first, ordering Thwacky to fire off a Razor Leaf. However, Opal isn't going to give the monkey any time to actually execute this move, as her Grimmsnarl is quick on the attack with a Sucker Punch that smacks Thwacky into a sidewall of the gym, leaving it a little bit dazed and confused. Calling to the starter, Brock inquires if it's okay. However, Thwackey just stands up, and what happened before when it faced Stunky and DIDNT is beginning to happen now, as it starts to throw a little bit of a temper tantrum, signaling that its rage is starting to build. This is exactly what Brock was going for, as he smiles, telling Thwackey to use a branch poke. The grass type charges down the field as it dons both of its sticks. However, once again, Opal isn't going to give it a chance as she orders another sucker punch. However, Brock and Thwackey are on the same page at this point, as the grass starter uses one of its sticks to deflect the sucker punch, while the second one is able to poke Grimmsnarl directly into its eye, causing the giant tanglement of hair to yowl in pain as Thwackey lands behind it. It's here that Brock is able to execute a second attack as he gives the command for a Razor Leaf that strikes unguarded. Thwackey is letting out cries of anger as its speed and its attacks continue to build, causing a curiosity to build in Opal. However, she realizes that she's quickly losing control of this battle, so in order to swing things back in her favor, she decides that it's time to initiate the ultimate transformation of her beast, as she recalls it and invokes the Dynamax phenomenon, summoning her G-Max Grimmsnarl. As the pink energy permeates throughout the entire building, Thwackey stares down the giant as if it's almost as big as Grimmsnarl is. However, it's not going to have to wait for this, as Brock is going to give the grass type a chance to match the dark type in power and size as he initiates his own Dynamax transformation. Smiling, Opal knows that she got Brock exactly where she wants him, as she tells her beast to use a max flare. Suddenly, Grimmsnarl begins to glow in a fiery hue as heat permeates throughout the gym. However, Brock isn't going to let this go unchecked, as he commands Thwackey to use a max darkness in order to counter. While normally Grimmsnarl would be the one to take the lead here, as it is a much higher level, Thwackey has something that Opal is unable to match, and that's just the pure rage that is feeling inside. It's like a battle lust, and the longer the battle goes on, the more intense its anger gets, like it has to win no matter what. And this is shown when Brock commands for a max strike, to which Thwackey is able to push beyond the limits of a Dynamax transformation, invoking the spirit that the move is based off of when it's able to hit with not one, but two max strikes back to back, knocking Grimmsnarl back into a stadium barrier. This catches both the leader and the dark type off guard, as Thwackey is on the attack before they can even recover. But this time, it's different. Brock didn't call for an attack, as Thwackey invokes another double max strike, smacking Grimmsnarl twice into the head. This is enough to level the dark type ace of the gym leader, as it reduces in size, laying in the middle of the field with spirals in its eyes, while Thwackey stands above it, beating on its chest like a Kong-sized gorilla. Opal recalls her ace, unsure on how to proceed. This thing looks like it could be dangerous, as the echoes of its chest beats reverberate throughout the gym. Both Leon and Joe are thankful that they're on this side of the barrier, as the power that Thwackey is exuding is something that can be a little bit intimidating. However, this is still a gym battle, and Opal aims to be the victor here, as she sends in her second and final Pokemon, Weezing. Now, being from the Kanto region, Brock is very familiar with what a Weezing is. However, this is a regional variant, something that he wasn't expecting, and now that Thwackey's transformed into a Dynamax, he can't exactly recall it, and if this thing is anything like its Cantonian counterpart, that means that it carries the poison typing, to which they quickly find out when Thwackey tries to attack with a max overgrow, and it is simply countered with a sludge bomb from the levitating poison type. While the overgrow is successful in bringing up an aura that begins healing all participants in the battle, it is unsuccessful in blocking Thwackey from the sludge bomb that is powerful enough to knock it out of its G-Max transformation and setting it into one of the battle barriers. Though it wasn't enough to knock it out, it's still a bit dazed and confused. It's at this point that Brock realizes that he's going to have to recall it, so he can figure out some sort of strategy when facing this thing, or it's going to get knocked out quick. Readying the Pokeball of his actual starter, Brock sends back in Karkle. The rock type hits the field, feeling some of that healing aura from the max overgrowth Thwackey had laid down the turn before. Now that Karkle has had some time to rest, Brock figures it's a perfect time as any to begin the building of their stats, as he orders a flame charge with the call to start the next battle. However, Opal is going to be a little bit defensive on this, as she orders a double hit to try to stave off the blows from Karkle. Luckily though, all of the damage wasn't pushed away, and Karkle is able to get a nice stat buff to its speed. It's not enough to be able to outpace Galarian Weezing, but it is enough to put it on par with it, as the two clash once again. However, this time, Weezing is going to use something called a Fairy Wind that is able to strike his rock type as it connects with another flame charge. This wasn't enough to cause a massive amount of damage, but it did chip away decently at Karkle, as it's beginning to breathe heavily from all of the battles that it's had to endure, especially the massive amount of damage that it took from Grimmsnarl before being thrown into this one. Brock knows that they're on the final leg of this this, and Wheezing is barely looking like it took any damage. This max overgrow is working against them as well as for them. However, Brock thinks that he may have an idea to cause some serious damage, even if this is going to be their last move. So he orders Carkle in with a rapid spin, to which Opal immediately tries to counter with a sludge bomb. However, the rapid spin is spinning so quick that it's able to deflect the poison type move, preventing any damage to Carkle, as it's able to slam its massive body into the frame of Wheezing, causing a decent amount of damage. But unfortunately, this does have a side effect, as the rapid spin is able to wipe away the max overgrow, preventing any healing to either Pokemon. And unfortunately for Carkle, this is going to be all she wrote, as without that healing, it collapses under the weight of its own body, bringing this battle to a close. It's now a 1v1, as Brock recalls Carkle, thanking it for all the effort that it put in. However, now that he's down to his final Pokemon, he just hoped that Thwacky's mind is clear enough to be able to bring home the win here. So, without hesitation, he sends back in his grass starter, to which, luckily for Brock, it seems to have calmed down slightly as it's focused back on Wheezing, ready to engage in battle once more. As the command for this final altercation is given, Brock orders a double hit. However, Wheezing is quick to counter with the Fairy Wind that has enough force behind it to push Thwacky back, preventing it from even connecting. This causes the mid-stage evolution to become a little agitated with the situation in its inability to cause any damage in that exchange. This begins to cause its rage to build once more. However, it's still listening to Brock, and at the command of a Razor Leaf, it's able to strike through the Fairy Wind, hitting for some decent damage, although it wasn't super effective due to the type disadvantage. But you can quickly see that that Razor Leaf had some more power behind it than usual, as Wheezing begins to have trouble levitating. This is where Brock begins to notice that it might have been a critical hit, which means they could have an opportunity to win here. Unfortunately though, Brock isn't the only one to notice this, as Opal has noticed it as well, and she's beginning to realize that the strength that this thing gains the madder it gets is going to be a problem, and she won't be able to win. So if she can't win, then she can at least make it so that Brock doesn't win either, as she plans her final assault. But she needs Thwacky to be as close as possible before they execute Order 66. Luckily, they won't have to wait, as the grass starter is on the assault again with a double hit at the command of Brock. As it dons both of its sticks in its hands, Thwacky prepares to pummel Wheezing with everything it has. However, as it gets within striking range, Opal executes her attack, as she orders Wheezing to use a self-destruct. Brock realizes exactly what this is, and it was the fear that he had in the back of his mind the entire battle. But luckily, the position that they're in gives them the perfect chance to pivot, as he orders Thwacky to use a branch poke. The grass starter jams both of its sticks into Wheezing, as it uses them to stand directly on top of the levitating ball of sludge. Then, just as Wheezing goes critical, Thwacky uses it as a jumping off point to gain as much air as possible. However, as the explosion rings throughout the entire battle stadium, Thwacky is swallowed by the smoke and debris of the self-destruct, leaving the fate of the grass type unknown. Moments go by without a peep, that is, until a brief cry can be heard coming from within the smoke. As it clears, the first thing to come into view is Wheezing, as it lays there with spirals in its eyes. But the second thing to come into view is Thwacky, as they can see it hanging from the rafters. The explosion that Wheezing had set off forced one of its sticks to lodge into the rafters of the roof, and Thwacky just hung on for dear life, avoiding any major damage, allowing it to be the victor of this battle and bringing things to a close, much to Brock's surprise and Opal's displeasure. However, a win is a win, and Opal, even though she doesn't like the way Brock won, is still obligated to present him with his 5th badge of the Galar region. As Thwacky drops back down, Brock uses its Pokeball to collect it before it smacks into the battlefield, thanking the grass starter as it returns. However, there is one thing that is a cause for concern: that outburst that it had during both of the battles. If it can't get that rage that it has under control, then it's going to be a problem in the future, and Brock can already see this. However, this is a moot point, as Leon and Joe have joined Brock and Opal on the battlefield, as Leon is immediately requesting that they can set up the time for their battle next, to which Opal sighs, telling the boy that they can have it first thing in the morning. But he's going to have to leave the gym now, as she has some important things that she needs to tend to. Then Opal kicks them all out before locking up the gym, as she mentions some sort of secret project that she's been working on. But that's all Brock, Leon, and Joe can hear as they stare at the door, unsure of what just happened. However, on the other side of the gym, Opal is speaking with someone, a woman by the name of Oleana, who tells the former Galarian champion that they have a lot to discuss. And this is where we are going to leave things for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this part? Did you enjoy their trek through the Glimwood Tangle? How about the capture that Leon was able to get in the Morgrim? And what about the battle that Brock had with Opal and the issues that Thwacky seems to be having? Are they going to be a curse like Brock thinks they are? Or are they a blessing in disguise? Let me know your overall thoughts in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been working. Custom art is getting kind of expensive, so we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.